Hi, my name is Joanna Gianoulis, and I am a senior UX designer working on the housing team.
I'm Jesse Kurlanchik. I'm a principal designer on WoW, and I'm the housing lead.
Why is now the good time, a perfect time for housing? Like, what took so long? Because I figured when the garrisons came out, which is a little over 9 years ago, that would be the small step to what we're getting. But it took 9 years. What took housing so long to make its way into World of Warcraft?
We wanted to do it the best we could, which took a long time. There was a lot of technical challenges. You know, you can, if you've played in the alpha or the beta, what you could do in housing is not something I would have thought you could do in WoW until we took a bunch of really smart people and had them do it. We had to figure out a lot of technical challenges. We had to figure out a lot of pipeline challenges. So how a bill becomes a law, how art goes from something we made 20 years ago into something you can place and sort of, use, in some cases, retexture, remodel, all those things. How we get new assets to have dye channels so you can change their colors. That was all new. Scaling, rotating arbitrarily, everything had to be built from scratch to support doing this. And we knew we wanted to come out strong and not sort of start with a small step and build it. We wanted to come out as something that people look to and be like, that's amazing housing, whether MMO or not. That's an amazing system, and I'm really excited to play with it.
Now let's talk about UI for a minute, because there's a lot going on in World of Warcraft with the UI right now in general, just even before the revamps. What are some of the challenges when making that as user-friendly as possible with so many options on placing objects and building things?
Yeah, the hardest thing is always making it still feel like WoW, because it's existed for so long and it's had UI for so long that looks a certain way. And anytime we do an upgrade, we want to make sure that we are still being true to that. And that was no different for housing, even though we wanted to take it a little bit step further, do a little bit something more cozy and tactile. But we still had those problems of everybody always has everything keybound. There aren't keys we can use for adding a new feature. Like just the littlest things, like adding a single keybind button is a challenge. So it's just a balance of figuring out what's going to give the player the best experience versus not making it too different for anyone that's been playing for a long time. One of the most important things to us was just making sure that the UI was intuitive and easy to use. We know a lot of gamers play housing games, but we know a lot of WoW players maybe haven't. And we want to make sure that as soon as they hop into housing, it feels really comfortable and easy. It should feel as easy to move a chair over a little bit as it does in real life to move a chair a couple inches, and then you can hop back out again.
Well, if you wanted to stick true to WoW, it would be as difficult as possible to move a chair a few inches, and that's the way the players want it and like it. So houses have budget points. Have you guys decided on like the maximum size a player's home can reach? Is that something that you're fiddling with now that you'll, take into account in the future?
It's a sort of ongoing conversation, especially external versus internal. External, we have much tighter budgets because you're sharing the space with, 40 or 54 other players. And there's no guarantee that we're not going to have 150 players all cramming into a spot at the same time, that you and your immediate neighbors aren't going to all put up, massive animated windmills and sort of try to make the biggest, messiest thing. Versus indoors, where it's more limited, more constrained. It's I'm worrying about you. So if you have a really strong PC or you have a really good vision in mind for what you're trying to build, you can sort of push against that. The limits indoors go up, and they will continue to go up as your house levels up. I don't think we've settled. We're certainly eager to keep pushing them up and see what engineering limits we hit, what sort of art and FPS limits we hit. How we can sort of intelligently navigate those problems is something that we're constantly going to be working on.
No, you mentioned before that WoW you guys have a bunch of assets already done because the game's been around for over 20 years. What are some of the specific challenges when taking something old and making it into an environment where the player can control how big it is, what color it is, where it gets placed? What are some of the technical challenges about that? Because I think there's a misunderstanding of it's just really easy. It's already done. They just paste it in.
It's done. Stick it.
Yeah, just compile done.
There's a really funny one, which is a lot of decor that is meant to be placed into the ground, like a tree, where you're not going to see the bottom of it. They weren't made with a bottom in mind, so there's nothing there. There's nothing there. So there's a lot of old props that we really want to add, but they take a little bit of work to add in.
Yeah, so things that aren't texture on the backsides. If you'll see people flipping windows around, and it's now transparent because it's not texture on the back, which some are actually leaving in because people can use those windows to make interesting stuff in their house. There are props that people think of as props that aren't actually props. So the most famous example is the frozen throne in Icecrown Citadel. That's not a throne. That's part of the mountain. That's part of the arena there. So if we wanted to give the players a frozen throne, we would have to carve it out effectively and then sort of texture the back, model the back, all of that jazz. So there's lots of stuff like that we have to be very picky and choosy about. Some items from 20 years ago are incredibly low resolution or low poly, which that might speak to you. You might be like, man, I really loved, this asset from Burning Crusade, and I want it. And we want players to be able to have those things, but they take a little bit of extra work. Because sometimes they're real old.
No, people
Especially
forget
when
how
you
old this game
scale
is
it
now.
up,
Rough
yeah.
stuff looks back then. It really was like really basic. You guys have done graphical overhauls since then. But yeah, it's an old game.
There's some old stuff.
People also want to know if guilds and groups will be able to have like a shared building experience, that they all share a house together or all share a neighborhood together that can all kind of work within, kind of like a guild bank but for housing.
I think we've sort of unlocked the ability for us to have our space. So it's not just your house and my house, it's your house, my house, and our shared front lawn or whatever. Right now, we're focused on getting the feature out, seeing how people interact with it, seeing what they want from it. So if I ask you, well, what does a guild hall mean to you? I will get a different answer than if I ask 5 other people. Some people are like, oh, it's like an apartment building where we all have our own room in. Other people's like, oh, it's actually, it's a space where we can all come together and feast and sort of prepare for our next content thing. And so figuring out what people actually want when they say I want a guild hall is something that's very top of mind, because now that we have our space, well, what do we want to do in our space?
That's so interesting, because that's been an ongoing conversation for 2 decades about what players want. Whenever your team does classic, what patch do we do? What do we include? What we don't include? And then it's at one point you're not gonna be able to make everybody happy. There's gonna be someone who's gonna be upset, and sometimes it's the minority and sometimes it's not. It's a balancing act for sure. That's got to be difficult.
When we talk about the roadmap for housing over the next coming weeks, months, and years, there's stuff that we obviously are going to add, right? Players want more decor, they want more fixtures and more colors and more more content, more endeavors and stuff like that, and then they want more features. You want to be able to show off your pets or your mounts, you want to be able to show off your transmogs and stuff like that. And then there's figuring out all the stuff that you may not know you want yet. So in the case of guild housing, if your vision is an apartment building and my vision is a fight club basement, and Joe's vision is it's actually like a library where we can all sort of pen books and put them on the shelves together. Figuring out what everybody needs in the short, medium, and long term is one of the bigger challenges we have.
I mean, I feel like that you kind of dropped a bomb in the middle of all this, because you're finally doing housing. People have been asking housing for decades. But then you open up all these other tools. Okay, we want a basement, we want stables, we want condominiums, we want apartment complexes, we want to be in the city. And you're like, okay, whoa, let's just get this done first.
It's maybe the most entertaining and exciting part about the feature is that we can have a conversation like that, and all of those random things we rattle off, we'd be like, oh, I guess that could make sense in housing. Yeah, that could make sense. And it's very hard to find stuff if you sort of enter it into a goodwill that doesn't make sense. Even the Fight Club basement, you're like, yeah, sure, okay, I can buy it.
Will public neighborhoods have moderation or privacy tools?
Moderation in terms of player enforced moderation, no. But if you do something that is maybe not the most appropriate thing with your house, there are reporting tools and stuff like that will sort of route to if we need to take action or something like that. But in terms of privacy, yeah, you can set your plots or your house sort of differently. So the public can come onto my lawn, but only my friends can come inside. Or my neighbors can come onto my lawn and no one can come inside.
Yeah, we set the defaults are that your house is private. We wanted to make sure that felt like your space until you decided to open it up. The yards start out as anyone in the neighborhood could come in, but you have the opportunity to change them too. So it's fully private, neighbors only, guild only, friends only. And then we also have a party option. So if you are doing a dungeon and you make some friends and you're like, hey, you want to come back to my house for some brewskis or whatever, you can kind of do that fantasy too. So we have a lot of different options for players to control the privacy in their own home.
How long did it take for someone to build something phallic in your housing system?
Not that long. We've had lots of conversations about sort of where the line is and what sort of needs to have action taken versus what is like, that's just sort of a funny thing that people are going to do. We went in with eyes open that we were making, UGC and all that would entail.
Will housing have any functional benefits to your class or professions, XP, anything like that, or is it purely a cosmetic experience?
Right now, there's nothing tied to player power. That's been really important to us, that you don't have to feel like you have to engage with housing, even if you don't want to, in order to go and do your raid. There are some things you can do in housing. We do let you have like a cooking station in your house, but as of right now, there's not anything else that you would consider to be like player power benefit to going there.
Maybe in the future, anything is possible.
Anything is possible in the future, but I think that is one that we've taken a pretty hard line on. To get forced into content that you don't necessarily enjoy isn't great. One of the magic parts about housing is it's mostly intrinsic motivation. It's me expressing something that I want rather than being like, oh, I guess I gotta paint my roof blue because that's the meta choice this season.
The HOA is really strict about that blue housing in Alliance.
That's a separate thing. If people want to set up HOAs to mandate blue housing, that's player choice.
Yeah, we know some players, this is going to be their end game. Like housing is going to be what they do, but we know that's not realistic for everyone, and it should be there in whatever context that you want it for.
Now, I know the real estate market in Azeroth is very, very tight, but people are wondering if you can have like apartments, and you mentioned apartments in cities like Storm or Rigomar that aren't instance that people can actually like walk by. Was that a conversation you entertained? Because obviously instance is the right way to go. There's way too many players. There would be housing everywhere and you wouldn't be able to do anything. Was that a conversation you talked about internally?
Very, very, very briefly. There was a conversation a couple of years ago about what other sort of world models could make sense for us. And yeah, it didn't make sense, partially because of the reasons you mentioned, partially because, we wanted to give everyone houses. If you wanted a house, you should have a house. But also, there's a, what's the word? Like a pastoral nature to housing. And, some people want to live in cities, and you can build your houses near other people to sort of give that vibe. You can sort of construct a more building-y house, more urban house. That's the word I'm looking for, with you and your friends. But, it would be hard for us to like, oh, it's my house in Stormwind that also has this big, lovely lake and a lovely view over some rolling hills, and there's some sheep in the background.
How many homes will one account be allowed to have? Right now it's limited to, can alts have their own as well? Like how many homes can one account have in total?
It's just two, but your alts can go to either house. So once you buy the house, any of your alts can go to either one. Can
I sell my house on the auction house once I'm done building it? Can I flip that house? Can I do that in World of Warcraft? Can we make that a show?
There was I'm very honest. There was a conversation we had also early on that one of the people on the team wanted to be a landlord, and he said, "Can I buy a bunch of houses and then charge people to live in them?" And I kind of looked at him like, "I'm sorry, what?" And we had this very serious philosophical discussion after that. That was, we want WoW housing to be free of a lot of the more problematic parts of real life housing. And that, that you don't rent them, there's no monthly upkeeps. It's not like your house is going to slowly start, falling into disrepair. And so, yeah, we did not want players to be able to do sort of a gray market shenanigans. That said, the concept of being an interior decorator or figuring out, me, I am very like functional. Like I need function over form in my housing. I want good sight lines. I want uninterrupted performance. Blah blah. But I might want to say, hey, can you build me a sweet Pirate Cove room? And sort of letting players do stuff like that is very much on our radar.
Do you guys have any plans to do like floating island or like vertical building support in the housing?
We sort of have it a little bit, but you can't take your actual house, like the actual main body of your house, and pull it off the ground. But you can certainly float a bunch of decor. You can do crazy things, especially inside, where you can stack a whole bunch of stuff and then sort of raise the whole thing up into the air. Making weird sky tunnels and stuff is totally in the cards. If people are doing it, they can. You
can dream it. You can do it.
if you can dream it, you can do it. In like most cases.
With you may have answered this already, like in another interview or another press release that I may have missed, but Since neighborhoods are instants, can cross-realm friends visit? Can you do communities have mixed realms, all that good stuff?
It is very important for us to, if you and I are friends and you're Horde and I'm Alliance and I invite you over to my house, that's totally cool. You can sort of go into the other factions' neighborhoods. If you have alts, that's totally cool. The way you can visit someone is pretty seamless. If we are in a party, if we are friends, if we are in a guild, if we are neighbors, anything like that, I can just right click your name and sort of visit home, assuming that you have permissions set to allow that.
Will you be able to move your house if you build it in a public space and want to move it to a private community or a guild community? Are you able to move your plot once you've already created it?
Yeah, it's really easy to move your plot. All you need to do is go and find the new place you want to move to and just say, hey, this is where I want to move to. And we sort of put your whole house into kind of an ethereal portal and just pop it back out exactly as it was. So it's really simple. You just have to find the new place you want to live and click the button.
WoW has night and day cycles, weather, the different environments. Like, is that something that you're going to implement over time into these plots of rain, dark, night, day, different, sky domes? Like, there's a lot of different things you could do here. Is that something that you're thinking about adding, or has been added already?
Currently, we do have weather. Actually, if you're in the neighborhood center and it starts to rain, you'll want to pay attention to what some of the NPCs start to do. It's actually really good. So we have normal day-night cycles, weather patterns, all that you would expect in the rest of the world of Azeroth.
We have skybox rooms. So there are rooms you can put in your house that are just a skybox with a ground plane. We have a day and a night one right now, and so you can make sort of outdoor space with all of the indoor budgets and tools, which is really interesting. We don't have right now player controllable day-night cycles or weather patterns. I think it's super interesting to poke at.
We do have players who have taken a decor with a particle effect, put it on the other side of a window, turn the window around, and now it looks like it's snowing outside their window. So we've actually already seen some really creative solutions to that, which is really fascinating to see.
There, other games do that too. They have like player control, like you can make it rain or snow or thunderstorm or whatever. And like, and like you said, like this is just the beginning. Like any of that stuff is possible in the future, right? It's just a matter of how to implement it and making sure that it's fair and just and works in your system. Because like you have toy boxes, it can work like a toy box, right? Like it thunderstorm for 10 minutes, for 30 minutes or whatever, like in your housing stuff. All this stuff is possible. You guys are just at the base. It's just funny because everyone wants all the things at once. Find the housing.
We
okay,
do
here's
too.
the list of 200 things we want out the gate. What's been the most interesting thing you've seen players do with their housing since it's been internal testing and in closed beta?
Oh, there's so many. We saw a house the other day where they made it look like there was snow on the ground by blowing out the lights, by putting windows under the ground and making the white walls look like snow. That was fascinating. I don't think any of us had any clue that would work. Like I said, we've seen weather patterns created. We've seen people using light sources to do all sorts of interesting things inside their homes. Chairs. We didn't expect chairs to work the way they do. We originally weren't going to let you scale chairs because, you scale a chair and it doesn't look so good when your character sits on it and it's like way too small and they're sitting way up here. But then players started putting them inside of other decor, and then suddenly you can sit on the bed, or you can sit sort of on an amphitheater that you created yourself to watch your fight club, like all sorts of crazy things. And we thought, okay, we don't want to restrict that. Players are loving that.
The surprises have been coming fast and furious. When the first test, people are like, oh, it's like I'm making a little cozy bedroom, or I'm making a kitchen, and someone's like, oh, I gotta make a bathroom. And there's not like sink objects, or there weren't sink objects at the time, and so we start making sinks out of things, or like cooktops. And so the early housing meta was making like cooktops. People were really impressed that you could take like a couple barrels, shrink them down, put them into each other on a table, and like, ooh, they made a stove. That's pretty creative. And then people started making giant mechs on their lawns. And you're like, oh, I guess you could also do that. That's very impressive. Like Joe said, there was the person that made the snow. It's only been we started Alpha in October, so not even 2 months, and seeing what people are building, and they just keep finding more stuff they can do with the stuff they have right now. What are they going to find when we add in, something else? And so it's changed the way we've talked about features a little bit, in that let's try to build things in such a way that they are more flexible than we might otherwise want them to be. If we're building this feature, and we're building, feature X, hey, let's make the art in such a way that that thing can be used for 10 things instead of narrowly, 2 or 3 things. And it's been a very interesting shift in the way we talk about it. Trying to take off as many guardrails as we can, trying to say, hey, will it cause problems if we do this? If not, let's do it. Let's see what happens. Let the horses out of the stable and worry about the doors later.
Will players be able to save housing builds like talent builds and class builds, like in loadouts? Will they be able to save a house in loadout 1 and make a different one and go back to the other one if they want to?
Not at launch, but that's a hot feature request. It enables a lot of really sort of good behavior. Me being able to share with people is really valuable. You visiting someone and be like, oh, I like the way you set up this room. Can I take a picture, get a copy of it? You sort of getting a room from someone else and sort of changing the color of some of the objects, or putting a couple of new items in, through the transformative power of art. You have now made that your own.
Joanna, what's a big misconception from the WoW community about your job as a UX designer?
Oh, wow. I don't know about a misconception, but I think the biggest thing with UI UX is that we like to joke that when it's good, we don't hear about it. Our whole entire job is we want to make it so it's seamless and intuitive and it works really good and you don't think about it. So if you're spending too much time looking at the UI, I don't know what we're doing, because we want you to be playing the game. We want you to be fully immersed in the game. So I think sometimes there could be a misconception that maybe we aren't doing as much, but that's because most of our work is stuff that you're not necessarily seeing. We spent a lot of time for housing, fine-tuning and iterating on just the controls for decorating. We spent so much time on the basic mode, and then we added advanced, and that took a lot of time to make sure everything felt smooth. And that's not necessarily something you would see if you hadn't tried the earlier iterations of it, for example.
When is it okay to be like to the community, here's a new tool, use it, and it may be completely different than anything they've used before in World of Warcraft? When are you able to do something like that as opposed to having to stick with the legacy format it's been for the last 20 years?
Oh, we did that in the early alpha. We put out a couple things that we didn't have finished UI or gimbals, and we just tried to get it out in front of players as soon as possible, because we knew that when players got their hands on it, we were going to hear things that we weren't hearing internally. You need more people, you need more experiences, you need to see how different people interact with the same set of tools. So we try to get everything out pretty early with housing. I think we've been really good about getting things out as often as we can so players can try it.
Jesse, what's a big misconception from the WoW community about being a principal game designer, about your job? And for that matter, what is a principal game designer, for those who don't know? Is it the principal of the thing? You're above a game designer, below a game designer?
It means I just sit in meetings and email a lot. I joked with Jay, who's the decor lead. I was like, oh, I'm the guy who has to do all the not interesting work so people can actually do work and actually make the game. If you want to talk about a roadmap, we can talk about that. If you want to talk about some hoity-toity philosophical thoughts, we can talk about that. But if you want to actually talk about doing work, I'm not the guy.
What are you most looking forward to when this finally goes public into players' hands for the housing? Joanna, we'll start with you.
I'm just excited to see what players are going to make. We've already seen so much crazy stuff, and it's like Jesse was saying, once this goes live, there's going to be things we never even thought of or planned on, and I'm just really excited to see that. I love seeing all the creativity. I'll be decorating while testing and thinking oh man, this is really cool, but then I'll see something someone else makes and I'm just oh, I had no idea, this is insane. And it's great.
Jesse?
Yeah, I think in addition to that, I'm also very curious to see how players play together. There's a lot of opportunities for people making mini games. People have made prop hunts in their houses. People have made there's jumping puzzles as far as the eye can see. But what sort of things are people going to build that sort of break the rules? It's not just a visual thing, but now we are assigning gameplay. People setting up dueling spaces in their basement in ways that you don't have that option in WoW. And so what are they going to do and sort of push the limits? How are we going to socialize? How is that going to sort of play out over the next weeks and months is fascinating.